This is a video about decolonizing land and plants and the way that we talk about and relate with them. As a white person of European descent living on stolen indigenous North American land, the territory known as Wisconsin, Lake Superior, I have a lot to learn, and I have a lot to continue to practice about how I am decolonizing my own way of being and living with this land, with these plants. I am offering this video because a friend recently asked me specifically about decolonizing the way that we talk about plants. And as a person who's doing herb work and medicine work with plants, this is something that I am thinking about almost daily, maybe daily right now. So the specific question was about using the words weed, alien, and invasive. So the ways that I use these words is this. In my circles of people using plants as medicine, circles that definitely cross race, ethnicity, able versus disabled body, femme, masculine, queer, etc. lines. A lot of us herb workers, medicine workers, use the word weed as a way to reclaim the word weed. Just letting the wind pass for a moment. I don't even know if you can hear me right now. So the word weed is, kind of used as a word that kind of like categorizes certain plants as something that's undesirable. But we use the word weed because a lot of the plants that are called weed are actually really amazing medicine and or also food. So dandelion, great example of weed, edible flower, edible root, edible stalk, edible leaf, also medicinal. Tasty weed, well, okay, that's what I call it. Tasty weed. Some people call it wood sorrel, but wood sorrel is actually a different plant that grows in the woods in western United States. This plant is in the oxalis family. So if people say wood sorrel and you're in the Midwest or in the East, it's likely that they're referring to this plant, oxalis, which I call tasty weed, because it's a lemony, delicious, tart plant. And there's there's so many weeds, right, that are medicine, food for humans, animals, pollinators, etc. Nettles are weed. Alfalfa, if it grows in a certain place, would be considered a weed. Clover, garden weeds include lamb's quarters and galansoga, smartweed, chickweed, the mallow that's called cheese, purslane, Asiatic dayflower. All of these are garden weeds that are incredible, like food medicine. Ground ivy, also really wonderful medicinal weed. So I definitely support people in reclaiming the word weed. Plantain, of course, great first aid medicine. I support people in reclaiming the word weed by calling things weeds that have that especially if they have a relationship with that plant. So like I definitely use that's how I use the word weed. I will call things that I have relationships with and that I know that other people like look down upon because they don't know what they are. I'll call those plants weeds. I'm actually less inclined to call something a weed if I don't use it or if I don't have a relationship with it. So, I mean, this is all about relationships, and so that gets into the other two words that my friend asked me about, which is the word alien and the word invasive. So, I don't use the word alien to describe plants at all. I don't run into it very often. I think that it might be on like DNR signs or something like that. I'm like thinking about the words alien invader, but I don't know, like now I'm thinking maybe those are used for talking about water creatures. So the word alien means non-native. And I think, alien is like a word that's more loaded than non-native, right? People use the word alien to talk about humans in a way that diminishes their humanity, and that's the same feeling that I have with plants, is that if people are using the word alien to describe a plant, they're using it to diminish the plant's legitimacy for taking up soil and taking up space wherever they are. The word invasive is used a lot more, especially by like white do-gooder, like ecologically conscious folk who are trying to like restore landscapes or do restoration work or reclaiming work on the with the land. But most of these people are not do not see that like plants have, well, I shouldn't even say this at all. Anyway, that's a real thing. Mostly white folk using the word invasive to describe plants that are aggressive. So a native plant can be invasive / aggressive. A non-native plant can be invasive / aggressive. I don't use the word invasive very often. I'm starting to use it like and to give people context because that's the word that people know. So most of the time I'll say non-native aggressive if I'm talking about a non-native aggressive plant rather than saying an alien invasive. But if I'm kind of entrenched in a conversation with somebody who is on the same page as I am about how we look at and approach aggressive / invasive species, I might use those two words interchangeably, because in my mind the word invasive is an adjective, and it's not loaded for me. Like, I don't think invasive, oh, therefore bad or evil or we need to kill it or get rid of it. When I hear invasive, I just think about a specific class of plants, but it could be animals or bugs or humans. Actually, that's usually what I say is, well, you can use the word invasive to talk about plants, but as long as you're like acknowledging that humans were the first invasive species, and that humans are actually the reason why these plants are coming here, and that humans are the ones who disrupted the soil, which is also why the plants are coming here. that as long as we're like being really clear about who's responsible and that it's humans, and that maybe we should just get the F off the land and let the ecosystem heal itself, because the ecosystem's a lot better at healing itself than humans are. So that's my little rant about invasive species. The earth does not need humans to heal it. The earth has much more intelligence and self-awareness and knowing about what it needs to heal soil that's been abused by humans than humans do. If the earth wants non-native, aggressive, invasive, alien species to come in to repair soil that's been compacted, or soil that's been degraded, soil that's been contaminated, then then who are we as humans to eradicate species who are, inhabiting soil when we're not being responsible with how we inhabit the soil? I'd rather that humans spend more time being quiet and listening to plants and trees and cultivating a garden of things that they love than spending time destroying invasive species which they hate. And that's the other thing that I say is, like, I definitely remove, certain species from my place. I'll remove buckthorn and I'll put in something that I want to be there. But if we're just removing something and we're not filling that niche and we're not creating a healthy environment, then we're leaving a hole open and something is going to fill it, and that's exactly what's happening. And that's what's happening in our bodies as well. If our bodies aren't populated with healthy species, and if we damage our ecosystems, then we're going to have things that come in and populate our bodies that may be doing repair work, and that repair work might be ugly. So taking care of the soil means slowing down and listening to the plants and to the trees and to the animals. Taking care of the soil means spending time looking and paying attention and watching. And then taking care of the soil means feeding it, means feeding the soil. And a lot of humans are out of tune with feeding the soil with things that come from our bodies, which is exactly what the earth needs, right? We feed the air with our breath, but our blood, sweat, and tears, some of our sweat goes onto the earth. And maybe, if you're one person who spends time outside, then maybe some of your tears are going to the earth. But most of us aren't feeding the earth with the fluids and excrement from our body. And that's exactly what the earth and the soil needs, is to be fed. And as far as our work to decolonize how we interact with the land and the plants and our environments, my feeling is that getting our bodies closer to the earth more often is exactly what's needed. And that doesn't mean a walk in the woods. It means laying with our bodies completely on the earth and finding ways to feed our blood and tears and pee and shit to the earth, and understanding that process is the most natural thing the most natural relationship that we can give, that we can have with the earth. And the most healing, decolonizing work that we can do with the land is to allow our bodies to do what they were designed to do with the earth, to give that reciprocity back to the earth. And my knowing is that the more that people allow for their bodies to be in right relationship with the soil, that the more that we decolonize our bodies and the way that our bodies show up, the more that we decolonize our minds and the ways that we inhabit the earth and inhabit space on this planet and our relationships with people.